Rebellion on the planet of eternal night. The spaceship Lumina floated silently above the black horizon of the planet Noxara. Unlike any world the crew had ever seen, Noxara was wrapped in eternal night. Its sky was a velvet void, with only the faint glimmer of distant stars piercing the darkness. There was no sun, no day, only a shadow that stretched endlessly. Captain Aria Voss stood at the viewport, her eyes scanning the surface below. "Sensors show signs of life," she said, her voice steady. "But it's unlike anything we've encountered. Be ready for anything." Beside her, Lieutenant Kade Ryn checked the ship's instruments. Population clusters are small, isolated. Communications are limited. It's like a planet that's forgotten how to speak. The crew of Lumina had been sent to investigate Noxara after a series of distress signals reached the United Galactic Council. The messages were faint, broken, and desperate, but one thing was clear. The inhabitants were suffering under a harsh and controlling rule. Dr. Lyra Kale, the ship's scientist, studied the readings. Energy patterns indicate widespread oppression. Whatever is governing this planet uses fear and darkness to maintain control. We need to understand their system before we intervene. As the Lumina descended through the thick, cold atmosphere, the crew saw strange lights flickering below. They were not natural, like fire or electricity. They pulsed in patterns, almost like signals, but signals of warning or command. A voice echoed from the ship's intercom. "Landing sequence complete. Prepare to disembark." Captain Voss took a deep breath. "Remember, this is a rebellion waiting to happen. We are here to observe first, act only if necessary. Keep your wits." The landing gear touched the ground with a soft tremor. The crew stepped out, and the chill of eternal night wrapped around them like a heavy cloak. The darkness was almost alive, pressing in on their senses, making every movement careful and deliberate. In the distance, the dim outlines of a city could be seen. Towers rose like dark spires, and between them, narrow streets wound like veins. Shadows moved, but whether they were people or machines, no one could tell. Dr. Kale adjusted her scanning device. "Life signs, many, but hidden. They are hiding from someone, or something. Whoever rules this planet, their control is absolute." As they approached the city, a figure emerged from the darkness. Tall, cloaked, and carrying a staff that glimmered faintly. "You are not of Noxara," the figure said, their voice a whisper that carried in the still air. "Why have you come to the land of eternal night?" Captain Voss stepped forward. "We come in peace. We received signals of suffering. We want to understand, and we want to help." The figure paused, studying them. Help is dangerous here. The Overlord sees all. Those who try to change the world are destroyed before they can act. If you wish to survive, follow me quietly." The crew exchanged glances. Rebellion was alive on this planet, but it was fragile. Every step they took could be the difference between freedom and destruction. The figure led them through the city streets, past shadowed alleys and abandoned squares. Finally, they arrived at a hidden sanctuary, deep beneath the city. Candles flickered faintly, revealing a small group of people huddled together. "These are the ones who resist," the guide whispered. "They dream of light, though it has never touched their eyes. They are waiting, for hope, for courage, for someone to lead them." Captain Voss looked around. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. "Then we will help. Tell us everything." And so, in the deepest darkness, the seeds of rebellion began to stir. The sanctuary beneath the city was quiet, but tension hummed in the air like static. The rebels had never seen outsiders willing to step into their darkness. Their leader, a wiry man named Thalen, stepped forward. His face was pale under the dim candlelight, his eyes sharp with distrust. "You come here claiming to help," Thalen said. "Many have tried before. All failed. The Overlord sees everything. He controls the city from his tower. One false step, and we will all be destroyed." Captain Voss nodded. "We understand the risk. But we cannot ignore suffering. Tell us what you know about this Overlord. How does he control your people?" A young woman, her hair silver like moonlight, spoke. "He has machines in every street. Cameras, sensors, drones that patrol constantly. He punishes anyone who speaks against him. Families vanish, neighborhoods burn. Fear is his weapon." Dr. Kale frowned at the readings from her portable scanner. "He's using more than just fear. There's energy suppression, some kind of artificial darkness that weakens the mind, keeps people obedient. It's psychological and physical. This is far beyond normal oppression.
Thalen sighed. We've tried to resist. Small acts, hidden at night. But each time, the Overlord finds us. We are ghosts in our own city.
That is why your arrival, it is unexpected. Captain Voss studied the map of the city projected from the scanner. If we are to help you, we need to hit him where it hurts most. Where is the center of his power?
Thalen's eyes darkened.
The tower, his fortress at the city's heart.
No one goes there and returns.
It is surrounded by darkness fields, machines, and guards who never sleep. Even the bravest rebels hesitate.
Lieutenant Kade Ryn clenched his fists. We've faced impossible odds before. We can get in, but we need a plan.
Stealth, deception, maybe the darkness can work for us instead of against us. The silver-haired woman, whose name was Aria, stepped closer. The darkness, yes, some of us have learned to move in it, hide in it. But the Overlord's senses are stronger than we are. Even I cannot cross his threshold without being detected.
Captain Voss looked at her crew.
We need intelligence first. We need to understand his patterns, the weaknesses in his machines. If we can gather that, then we can strike, not with brute force, but with strategy. For the first time, hope flickered in the eyes of the rebels. They had been waiting for someone who could act without fear, someone who could bring change.
That night, the Lumina crew split into small teams.
Captain Voss and Kade would scout the streets outside the city, observing patrol routes. Dr. Kale would work with Aria to study the energy fields and find ways to counteract them. Thalen would organize the hidden rebels to provide safe houses and diversions. As the eternal night pressed down on them, every step was cautious. The streets were empty, but shadows moved where no shadows should be. Drones hovered silently above, scanning for life. The darkness itself seemed alive, a weapon wielded by the Overlord. Captain Voss whispered into her communicator.
Keep your eyes open. He may see us before we see him.
Move slowly, stay in cover, and watch the patterns.
Hours passed.
They observed the city, noting patrols, recording sensor timings, and mapping the fortress. What they discovered shocked them. The Overlord's control was not only through machines. He had spies among the people, collaborators who reported every act of defiance. The rebellion was surrounded by enemies even in hiding. Returning to the sanctuary, the team shared their findings.
Dr. Kale laid out a rough plan. If we can disrupt the energy fields, even for a short time, we can create a path into the fortress. That's our window.
But it will be brief, and the risks are extreme.
Captain Voss nodded. We'll take that risk. Freedom is never won without danger.
Tomorrow, we strike, not blindly, but carefully.
Tonight, rest.
Tomorrow, the first spark of rebellion becomes fire. As they settled into the shadows, the people of Noxara dared to imagine something they had never known: hope. For the first time in centuries, the darkness felt less absolute, and the possibility of light, even in the smallest measure, seemed real. Dawn would never come on Noxara, but the crew of Lumina treated the eternal night as their own cycle of day and night. Captain Voss gathered her team in the sanctuary, their faces lit by flickering candlelight. Tonight, she said, we test the defenses. We go into the city, observe the fortress up close, and see if we can create a small disruption. We stay hidden, we gather data, and we return. No heroics. Lieutenant Kade Ryn adjusted his cloak, blending into the darkness.
We've walked these streets. We know the patrols. But every corner could be a trap. Stay sharp.
Dr. Lyra Kale carried a small device glowing faintly with blue light. This will temporarily disable the energy suppression in a small area. Enough for us to sneak past, but only for a few minutes. Timing is everything. Elira, moving like a shadow herself, led the way. Follow me. The less light you give off, the safer we are. The Overlord's senses detect warmth and movement as easily as sight. The streets were silent except for the distant hum of drones. Their eyes glowed faintly, scanning for life. Every shadow seemed to twist and breathe, making the team second-guess their path. As they approached the outskirts of the fortress, Dr. Kale activated her device. A faint pulse of light rippled across the street, and for a brief moment, the oppressive darkness lifted slightly. The sensors flickered and blinked, blind to the intruders moving through the shadow. Captain Voss motioned her team forward. Move fast. Stay low. They passed the outer walls, a combination of metal barriers and energy fields that seemed impenetrable. With the device active, the fields dimmed enough for them to slip through. Suddenly, a voice rang out in the darkness. "Intruders! Identify yourselves." A drone hovered nearby, its sensors partially restored. Kade fired a small stun pulse from his weapon.
The drone fell to the ground with a hiss.
Aria whispered, "This is just the beginning. Many more will come." The team reached a small observation point overlooking the fortress. From here, they could see the central tower, tall and dark, with glowing veins of energy running along its surface. Lights moved in the windows, like eyes watching the city. Dr. Kale studied the patterns. The energy flows from the top. That's his control hub. If we can disrupt it, even briefly, we can create chaos inside the fortress. That's our target.
Captain Voss nodded.
We need a plan to get inside, but first, we map every patrol and sensor. If we're careful, we can strike without being detected.
This is the first spark.
It cannot fail. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the fortress walls. A figure in black armor, moving faster than any human, observed them.
Aria gasped.
He's one of the Overlord's elite guards. They are faster, stronger, and ruthless. If he detects us, we are done. Captain Voss motioned to hide. The team pressed against the walls of an alley, their breaths shallow. The guard passed, scanning the street with a mechanical eye that glowed red. Once the danger passed, Kade whispered, "We can't avoid them forever. Eventually, we'll have to face him." Dr. Kale shook her head. "For now, let's focus on the map. Knowledge is our weapon tonight. Force comes later." Hours passed as they traced patrol patterns, studied sensor timings, and recorded weaknesses in the energy fields. By the time they returned to the sanctuary, their clothes were damp with sweat and their muscles ached, but they carried information that could change everything. Thalen greeted them with a grim smile. "You've seen it firsthand. The Overlord's power is more than any of us imagined.
But you've also found the cracks.
That is all we need for now." Captain Voss looked at the group.
"Tomorrow, we plan the first strike.
Not to take the fortress, but to ignite hope. One small victory is enough to show your people that the Overlord is not invincible."
Aria nodded.
"If we succeed, even in the smallest way, the people will rise. The eternal night will still be dark, but for the first time, there will be light inside it." And so, under the shadowed towers, the rebellion prepared to awaken. Their first move would be small, almost imperceptible, but even the smallest spark could start a fire. Night never ended on Noxara, but in the hidden sanctuary, the rebels prepared as if it were the darkest hour before dawn. Captain Voss gathered her team, laying out the plan on a holographic map projected in MIDI.
"This is simple but dangerous," she said.
"We are not taking the fortress tonight. We're creating disruption.
A small strike to show the people that resistance is possible."
"Dr. Kale, your device will disable the energy fields at the main gates for 2 minutes. That's our window." Dr. Kale nodded. "It's barely enough time, but it's something. 2 minutes is all we need to ignite hope." Thalen's rebels whispered among themselves, preparing makeshift weapons and hiding in the shadows near the city streets. Aria led a small group to distract patrols, her movements fluid and silent, blending into the eternal darkness. Captain Voss, Kade, and Dr. Kale approached the gates. The fortress loomed before them, taller and darker than they had imagined. Red lights pulsed along the walls, sensors constantly scanning. Any misstep could alert the Overlord's forces. "Ready?" Voss asked.
Kade gave a curt nod.
"Let's make history, or die trying." Dr. Kale activated her device. A pulse of energy spread outward, dimming the oppressive fields. The sensors flickered and went blind for the briefest moment.
"Now!"
Voss commanded. The team sprinted forward, slipping past the gates as guards inside the fortress stumbled at the sudden darkness. Alarms began to buzz, but the disruption allowed them to move further into the courtyard than anyone had dared in decades. From above, Aria's group created diversions. Sparks flew as minor explosions set off alarms and confused the patrols. Shadows moved like ghosts among the towers, keeping the Overlord's soldiers off balance. Inside the courtyard, the team planted small devices to further weaken the energy fields and disable the inner sensors. Kade ducked behind a wall, firing a stun pulse at a patrolling guard who had recovered from the first disruption. Captain Voss watched as the fortress reacted. Lights blinked, sirens wailed, and yet, the team moved with precision.
Keep going. Almost there.
Then, a chilling sound cut through the chaos, a voice amplified by machines, cold and commanding. Intruders! You dare enter my city! The Overlord himself appeared at the top of the central tower, a dark figure surrounded by flickering veins of energy. His eyes glowed faint red, scanning the courtyard. You cannot hide. You cannot escape. Darkness is mine. The rebels froze for a split second, the weight of his presence pressing down on them.
But Captain Voss clenched her jaw. We are not afraid, she said.
Hope is stronger than your fear.
With that, Kade triggered the final device.
A pulse surged through the fortress, temporarily shutting down the energy fields and security systems. Guards stumbled, drones fell, and the red glow in the Overlord's eyes flickered. The team retreated quickly, moving through the shadows as the fortress scrambled to regain control. Aria guided them back through hidden streets to the sanctuary, where the rebels who had stayed behind erupted in whispered cheers.
Thalen looked at the returning team.
You did what no one else could. You touched the fortress, and you lived. That is more than a victory, it is proof.
Captain Voss nodded.
The Overlord is strong, but he is not invincible.
Tonight, we showed your people that resistance is possible. That is the spark. Now, we must fan it into flame.
Aria smiled faintly. They will see.
The people will rise.
Darkness cannot hold forever. As the sanctuary settled into quiet, the rebels began planning the next moves. The Overlord would retaliate, no doubt. But the first strike had shifted something fundamental. Hope had entered Noxara, and the people had remembered that even in eternal night, a spark of light could survive. The sanctuary was quiet after the first strike, but peace was fragile. Captain Voss and her team returned, weary but alive, their hearts still racing from the danger they had faced. The first spark of rebellion had been lit, but the Overlord would not forget. As the crew debriefed with Thalen and Aria, the ground trembled slightly beneath the city. Small explosions rocked distant districts, and the faint hum of energy fields intensified. The Overlord had begun his retaliation. He knows we struck, Thalen said grimly. He's punishing the city, trying to crush hope before it spreads. Some districts may already be lost. Alira's face was pale. Families, children, the innocents will suffer. That is his way. Fear is his strongest weapon. Captain Voss clenched her fists. We expected retaliation. That's why we struck carefully, and why we moved swiftly.
But we can't sit and watch.
If we do, the spark dies. Dr. Kale examined her readings. The Overlord has increased patrols exponentially.
Drones and sensors are everywhere.
He's also deployed new energy pulses in the streets. These aren't lethal, but they disorient, weaken, and confuse anyone who moves through them.
Kade's jaw tightened. He's trying to break us before we can strike again.
But he underestimates the people. Hope cannot be erased so easily. Thalen looked around at his small group of rebels.
We've been hiding for too long. We've waited for someone else to act.
Now, we have to rise ourselves. The first strike has shown our people that resistance is possible. If we organize and act together, we can survive his retaliation.
Captain Voss nodded. We'll split into small cells.
Distribute information, sabotage supply lines, protect civilians. The Overlord can control the city, but he cannot control hearts and minds once people believe in resistance. The first night of retaliation was chaos. Explosions lit the darkness as drones patrolled aggressively. Rebels moved carefully, saving families, creating safe passages, and disabling small machines that threatened the streets. Captain Voss led a small team to evacuate a district that was targeted for destruction.
They moved silently through narrow alleys.
Shadows became allies, hiding their movements as they guided terrified citizens to secret tunnels beneath the city. Aria and her group coordinated the evacuations, using coded signals and whispered commands to avoid detection. Even as the Overlord's forces advanced, the rebels began to see the beginnings of defiance. Small clusters of citizens refused to cower. They lit tiny lights, signs of solidarity, and whispered messages of hope.
Thalen watched from the sanctuary.
This is the beginning of something bigger. The people are awakening.
But not all was easy.
Tensions rose within the rebel ranks. Fear, fatigue, and the constant danger tested their resolve. Arguments broke out over strategy, and some questioned whether risking lives against such a powerful enemy was worth it.
Captain Voss addressed them firmly. We are all afraid. That is natural.
But courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting despite it. Every life saved, every spark lit, weakens the Overlord's grip. We fight not for glory, but for freedom. By the end of the night, the city was scarred, but the rebellion had grown stronger. The first strike had ignited hope, and the people began to believe that the Overlord could be resisted. Aria whispered to Thalen, "They see us, they trust us.
The spark is spreading.
Soon, we will have more than hope, we will have numbers." Captain Voss looked out over the city from the sanctuary's hidden entrance. Lights flickered here and there, small signs of life and resistance.
"The fight is far from over," she said quietly.
"But the Overlord will learn something tonight. Darkness alone cannot conquer the human spirit." This part is around 750 to 800 words, showing the Overlord's retaliation, the risks faced by civilians, and the growth of hope and organization among the rebels. It also introduces internal tension, adding depth to the rebellion. Days had passed since the first strike. The city of Noxara was tense, the constant hum of the Overlord's machines a reminder that danger lurked in every shadow.
Yet, hope had grown among the people.
Small acts of defiance, lights in windows, whispers in alleys, signaled that the rebellion was no longer just a secret. Captain Voss gathered her team in the sanctuary, spreading out a detailed map of the central tower. "We've delayed retaliation as long as we could, but now we must strike at the heart," she said. "The central tower is the source of his control. Energy fields, sensors, and the elite guard all originate there. If we disrupt it, we can cripple his power over the city."
Kade frowned. "It's a fortress designed to be impenetrable.
Every entrance is monitored, every shadow watched. Even with the people helping, the risk is extreme."
Dr. Kale placed her scanner on the map. "I've identified a series of weak points.
Old maintenance tunnels that bypass the outer sensors, and a ventilation shaft that leads near the control hub. It's risky, but it's our best chance."
Aria spoke softly, her eyes fierce. "The people are ready to fight alongside us.
Distracting patrols, guiding citizens to safety, providing cover. We will not be alone."
Thalen nodded. "The citizens will follow the spark. Many have waited for this moment.
If we strike now, we can turn hope into action."
The plan was set.
Small teams would approach from multiple directions, using stealth to infiltrate the fortress. Captain Voss, Kade, and Dr. Kale would enter through the ventilation shaft, aiming for the control hub. Aria and rebel squads would create diversions, sabotaging patrols and disabling minor energy nodes. As night fell, the teams moved into position. The city seemed quieter than usual, as if holding its breath. The fortress loomed above them, dark and imposing, its red sensors pulsing like the heartbeat of a beast. Aria's squad spread through the streets, causing distractions with small explosions, smoke, and signals. Drones were lured away from key entrances, giving the infiltration team a narrow window to move undetected. Captain Voss led Kade and Dr. Kale into the shaft. The metal walls were cold, the darkness pressing against them. Every sound was amplified, the drip of water, their own breathing, the faint hum of energy from the tower above.
"Stay quiet," Voss whispered.
"Every step matters." Hours passed as they navigated the labyrinthine shafts. Finally, they reached a grated opening overlooking the control hub. From their vantage point, they could see the Overlord's elite guard patrolling, and the central core of energy glowing ominously. Dr. Kale examined her device. "This will disable the core's protective systems long enough for us to plant the disruptors. But timing is critical. We have maybe 2 minutes."
Kade clenched his jaw.
"Then let's make them count." With careful precision, they descended into the hub. The elite guard moved in patterns they had studied, but one misstep could alert the Overlord. Every movement was measured, silent, tense. Captain Voss whispered, "Now." Dr. Kale activated the disruptor. Pulses of blue energy spread across the hub, shutting down protective shields, disorienting the elite guards, and weakening the energy flow from the tower. The Overlord's red eyes glowed brighter in anger as alarms blared. "We've done it," Voss said. "Now retreat before they recover." The team moved back into the ventilation shaft as the hub convulsed under the energy disruption. Outside, the citizens and rebel squads took advantage of the chaos, sabotaging machinery and guiding the frightened but emboldened populace to safer areas. From the sanctuary, Thalen and Aria watched the tower. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and for the first time in centuries, the fortress was vulnerable. The Overlord's control over Noxara had been shaken. Captain Voss knew this was only the beginning.
The rebellion had proven it could strike at the heart of darkness.
But the Overlord would retaliate with greater force, and the fight for freedom was far from over.
Aria turned to Thalen. The people will follow now. They believe.
That belief is stronger than any machine. Thalen smiled faintly. Then the eternal night may not last forever. Not if we keep fighting. And deep within the fortress, the Overlord's glowing eyes burned with fury, aware that the first cracks in his empire had begun to form. This part is around 750 to 800 words, showing the major strike against the central hub, the cooperation of rebels and citizens, and setting up the Overlord's personal retaliation. The disruption of the central hub had sent shockwaves through Noxara. The city stirred with newfound courage, but the Overlord was far from defeated. His eyes glowed red as he assessed the damage from his tower, rage coursing through him.
Fools,
he hissed, his voice echoing through the city via mechanical amplifiers.
You think you can challenge me? Darkness is eternal.
I am eternal.
But the people of Noxara had already begun to rise.
Small fires burned in abandoned districts, symbols of defiance. Whispers of rebellion moved through the streets, growing louder with each passing hour. Captain Voss and her team returned to the sanctuary, exhausted but triumphant. The strike had worked, but the cost was evident. Some of the rebel squads had been caught in the chaos, captured or injured. Thalen met them at the entrance, worry etched on his face.
He knows we struck at the hub. Expect retaliation.
And it will be worse than before. Alira's expression was grim. The citizens who helped may be targeted first. Families, neighborhoods, he will try to crush hope with fear. Dr. Kale studied her readings. The energy fields will recover within hours. He'll strengthen patrols, deploy new drones, and likely target rebel strongholds. We have little time to prepare. Kade clenched his fists.
We've provoked him. Now we have to be ready for his counterattack. He won't hold back.
Captain Voss nodded.
We prepare. We move civilians to safer zones.
We reinforce our hidden paths and safe houses.
And we stay united.
Tonight, the Overlord will come for us. We must be ready. As darkness enveloped the city, the Overlord struck.
Drones swept through the streets in waves, hunting anyone associated with the rebellion.
Energy pulses disoriented civilians and rebels alike, making movement dangerous.
Shadows became traps as elite guards hunted relentlessly.
The rebels fought bravely but were forced to retreat repeatedly. Captain Voss led her team through narrow alleys, dodging drones and guards, evacuating citizens and regrouping wherever possible.
In one district, Aria and Thalen coordinated a counterattack.
They set controlled fires to block drone paths, used mirrors to reflect energy pulses back toward patrols, and guided civilians into hidden tunnels. Even in the chaos, the rebellion refused to break.
But the Overlord's forces were overwhelming.
Captain Voss realized that victory could not be immediate. Survival was the priority. We have shown the people that resistance is possible, she told her team.
Tonight, we survive.
Tomorrow, we fight again. As the night stretched on, the sanctuary became a hub of strategy and recovery. Injured rebels were treated, information was shared, and plans were made for the next strike. Each loss hardened their resolve. Each act of bravery strengthened their belief. Aria looked over the city from a hidden balcony. He wants to frighten us, but the people are not afraid anymore. The darkest hour is upon us, yes, but after darkness comes dawn.
And we will fight until it comes.
Captain Voss placed a hand on her shoulder. The Overlord believes darkness is eternal.
He has not seen what courage can do.
We are not just fighting him, we are fighting centuries of fear. And we are winning, one act at a time. Deep within his tower, the Overlord's rage simmered. His empire had been shaken, his control weakened. He would strike back harder, smarter, and without mercy. But even he could sense the change. The people were beginning to see that even in eternal night, resistance could live. The rebels prepared for what would be the decisive battles ahead. Their numbers were growing, their courage unyielding, and their hope a light that no darkness could snuff out. The city of Noxara trembled under the Overlord's fury. Red energy pulses raced through the streets, drones patrolled in relentless waves, and the elite guards hunted every shadow. Yet, the rebellion had grown stronger, fueled by the courage of its people and the determination of Captain Voss and her team. In the sanctuary, the leaders gathered for the final plan. Captain Voss spread a detailed map of the central tower.
This is it, she said. Tonight, we strike at the Overlord himself. We disable the main energy core, cut off his control over the city, and give the people a chance to rise. It's our last and best opportunity. Kade clenched his fists. He'll be expecting us. This will be the fight of our lives. Dr. Kale adjusted her scanner. The energy disruptors we used before won't last long enough to take him down completely. I've modified them. If we place multiple devices inside the tower simultaneously, we can overload his systems. It's risky, but it might work. Thalen and Aria organized the rebel forces outside the tower, ready to create diversions and protect civilians. The people of Noxara had learned to fight, using shadows, fire, and ingenuity to resist the Overlord's forces. As night deepened, Captain Voss led her team toward the tower. The streets were alive with conflict. Rebels and citizens fought together, distracting drones, sabotaging patrols, and lighting signals to guide the infiltration team. Inside the tower, the air was thick with energy. The glow from the Overlord's machines cast eerie shadows on the walls. Elite guards moved swiftly, but the team's prior reconnaissance allowed them to avoid most patrols. Finally, they reached the main energy core. Dr. Kale began setting the disruptors while Kade and Voss kept watch. The hum of the Overlord's power filled the room, oppressive and overwhelming. "You think you can stop me?" The Overlord's voice thundered through the chamber. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, clad in dark armor, red energy pulsating around him. His eyes burned with fury. "I am eternal. I am darkness itself." Captain Voss squared her shoulders. "You are nothing without fear. And the people of Noxara no longer fear you." A fierce battle erupted. Kade and Voss fought the elite guards with precise skill, while Dr. Kale worked frantically to complete the disruptors. Sparks flew, energy arcs crackled, and the room shook under the Overlord's power. Finally, with a last pulse of energy, the disruptors activated. The tower convulsed violently as the energy core overloaded. Red veins of power shattered, alarms blared, and the elite guards were thrown back. The Overlord screamed in rage as his control over the city faltered. Outside, the people of Noxara saw the lights flicker and dim. The oppressive energy that had held them for centuries was breaking. Cheers erupted in the streets. The rebellion had reached the tipping point. Captain Voss and her team barely escaped as the tower began to collapse. From a nearby vantage point, they watched as the central spire cracked and fell, the darkness that had seemed eternal finally breaking. Aria ran to Voss, her face glowing with triumph. "It's over. The Overlord is gone. The city, it's free." Thalen smiled at the crowd gathering in the streets. "We have lived in darkness for too long. Now, we can see the light, even if it's just the first dawn we've ever known." Captain Voss looked at the city, now alive with movement, lights, and life. "The fight was never about me, or even us. It was about giving the people the courage to rise." That spark burned brighter than any darkness. The survivors cheered. For the first time in centuries, Noxara was free. The eternal night still hung in the sky, but it no longer ruled the hearts of the people. They had reclaimed their lives, their courage, and their hope. As Captain Voss watched the city, she knew this victory was just the beginning. Rebuilding, healing, and guiding the people of Noxara would be the next challenge. But for now, the darkness had been broken, and the rebellion had won. And in the eternal night, a new light began to shine.